The Gnostic theory of extraterrestrial space alien intrusion on planet Earth. Since the explosion of the ET UFO phenomenon back in 1947, speculation about alien intrusion on planet Earth has been rampant. And since then we've learned a lot. And most of us who know about the Emerald Tablets written by Thoth the Atlantean know that he talks about not only Earthlings in the past, before the flood, having very advanced technology and going on space travel, but also that other entities from other planets visit Earth regularly, and that this has been going on for thousands of years. Now, half a dozen theories dominate the debate, but there's one theory that has yet to be examined. It did not emerge after 1947, but approximately 1,600 years earlier. And to be precise, the evidence of this theory came to light through a discovery in Egypt in December of 1945, although the significance of the find was not realized until 1947. In that year, French scholar Jean Dorès identified the Egyptian find at Nag Hammadi as a catch of rare Gnostic texts. Gnosticism is the label scholar used for a body of teaching derived from the mystery schools of pre-Christian antiquity. Gnostics who protested against Christian doctrine such as divine retribution and Christ's resurrection found themselves targeted as heretics and were brutally suppressed by early converts to the one true faith. This is the untold story of the mysteries ended, and since that signal year, 1947, some of the lost mystery school knowledge has been recovered. Gnosis is the Greek word for knowledge. It was a path of experimental mysticism in which the initiates of the mystery schools explored the psyche and the cosmos at large. Using psychoactive plants, yoga, and sex magic, these ancient seers experienced altered states and developed siddhis, or occult skills such as clairaudience and remote viewing. Gnosis was a kind of yogic, noetic science meddled with parapsychology. In heightened perception, Gnostics developed a vast cosmological vision centered in a female deity, the divine Sophia. Sophia meaning wisdom. The Gnostic creation myth is unique in that it includes a full-blown explanation of how inorganic alien beings came to be present in our solar system. The Nag Hammadi material contains reports of visionary experiences of the initiates, including first-hand encounters with inorganic beings called Archons. Gnostic teaching explains that these entities arose in the early stage of formation of the solar system before the Earth was formed. Archons inhabit the solar system, the extraterrestrial realm as such, but they can intrude on Earth. Interestingly, this Gnostic insight accords closely with the view of Jacques Vallée, who maintains that extraterrestrial cyborgs probably belong to the local planetary realm. Vallée also proposes that extraterrestrial UFO, the ET UFO enigma, is a, quote, spiritual control system, unquote. Okay, a spiritual control system, a phenomenon that, quote, behaves like a conditioning process, unquote. This is exactly what Gnostics said about the Archons, that they can affect our minds by subliminal conditioning techniques. Their main tactics are mental error, intellectual virus or false ideology, especially religious doctrines and simulation. Archons are predatory, unlike a wide range of non-human and other dimensional beings, also known to the Gnostics, beings who are benevolent or neutral towards humanity. Physical descriptions of Archons occur in several Gnostic codices. Two types are clearly identified: a neonate or an embryonic type, and a draconic or a reptilian type. Obviously, these descriptions fit the Greys and reptilians of contemporary reports to a T, or I should say to an AET, extraterrestrial. Delving into the Gnostic materials, it's quite a shock to discover that ancient seers detected and investigated the problem of alien intrusion during the 1st century AD, and certainly well before that. The mystery dates from many centuries before the Christian era. What is amazing about the Gnostic theory of the Archons is not only the cosmological background explaining the origin of these entities and the reason for their enmeshment with humanity, but the specificity of information on the alien modus operandi describing how they operate and what they want from us. For one thing, Gnostics taught that these entities envy us and feed on our fear. So basically, they're energy vampires. They create a situation for us where we start panicking and we have stress and anxiety and fear. And that's what they're happy about because they feed off of that. Now, above all, the article says, they attempt to keep us from claiming and evolving our inner light, the gift of divine intelligence within us. In other words, they're trying their best to divide us and separate us from God. And that's one thing that we have, that's our spiritual battle here. We have to stop that. And one way they do that is by entering our thoughts, or, it's logismo. Logismo is a thought. Now, while I would not claim, it says here, that Gnostic teachings on the Archons or what remains of such teachings have all the answers to ET and UFO enigma, one thing is clear. They present a coherent and comprehensive analysis of alien intrusion as well as specific practices for resisting it. They are far more complete and sophisticated than any theory and discussion today. In short, the ancient seers of the mysteries in Europe and the Levant seem to have accomplished 2,000 years ago what many of us have been attempting to do since 1947. Figure out who the ETs are, where they originate, how they relate to us, and most important of all, how we ought to relate to them. As far as I know, apart from myself, only one writer on the ET UFO issue has directly identified the Gnostic Archons with contemporary ETs, and this is Nigel Kerner, whose book, The Song of the Greys, is a strange, singular, and little-known contribution to this debate. Kerner cites the Nag Hammadi text just in passing, and does not elaborate on the Gnostic teachings about the Archons. He makes a strong case for alien interference with the human genome, but this claim does not stand up against Gnostic analysis. Gnostic texts use mythological language to describe actual events in prehistory, as well as long-term developments in the human psyche. According to the ancient seers, Archons cannot access our genetic makeup, but they can fake an intervention. Considering the confusion of humanity in modern times, a faked intervention would be as good as real. This typifies the Archon tactic of getting us to imagine and believe things that are not true and to accept simulation for reality. In this way, Gnostics taught these alien cousins can deviate the human species from its true and proper course of evolution. The unique emphasis of the goddess Sophia is the high inspirational message of Gnosis. The ancient seers taught that, through a special link to the goddess, our species can overcome the Archons and secure a human and humane future for the earth. A Gnostic catechism, encounters with aliens in the mystery school texts. Here and there, the Coptic Gnostic materials contain passages that describe encounters with the ET-like being, sometimes with explicit advice about how to handle these entities. What beliefs are implied in such testimony, and what are we to believe about such testimony? I'll attempt to address both of these questions in this brief topical essay. The occult instruction. First, for a first-hand look at the testimony, let's consider a passage from the first Apocalypse of James, the revelation dialogue in which an unnamed teacher, the Lord or Master, confers secret knowledge upon the Gnostic named James, the Gnostic named James. The Master said, "James, behold, I shall reveal to you the path of your redemption." Whenever you are seized and you undergo death pangs or mortal fear, a multitude of Archons may turn on you thinking they can capture you. And in particular, 3 of them will seize you, those who pose as toll collectors. Not only do they demand toll, but they take away souls by theft. Now when you come under their power, one of them, who is the overseer, will say to you, "Who are you and where are you from?" You are then to say to him, "I am a child of humanity and I am from the source." He will then say to you, "What sort of child are you and to what source do you belong?" You are to say to him, "I am from the pre-existing source and I am the offspring of the source." Then he will say to you, "Why were you sent out from that source?" Then you will say to him, "I came from the pre-existing ones that I might behold those of my kind and those who are alien." And he'll say to you, "What are these alien beings?" And you're to say to him, "They are not entirely alien, for they are from the fallen Sophia Akamoth, the female divinity who produced them when she brought the human race down from the source, the realm of the pre-existing one. So they are not entirely alien, but they are our kin. They are indeed so because she who is their matrix, Sophia Akamoth, is from the source. At the same time, they are alien because Sophia did not combine with her, like in the source, her divine male counterpart, when she produced them. When he also says to you, "Where will you go now?" you are to say to him, "To the place when I came, the source, there shall I return." And if you respond in this manner, you will escape their attacks. Considerable information is packed into that exchange. The resemblance to contemporary report of close encounters is undeniable. The Archons induce a state of mortal panic. They often appear in 3s. They perform abductions, take away souls by theft. These details present a striking match to contemporary ET UFO lore. But in an equally striking departure from the current literature, the Gnostic teacher gives explicit instructions on how to face the alien entities. The vast amount of testimony on ET UFO phenomena available today presents almost nothing on defense against alien intrusion. Contactees and abductees are passive witnessed, overwhelmed, and overpowered by the aliens. The Gnostic writings not only describe such encounters, they also prescribe defense actions. The Master offers cogent counsel for keeping the Archons in their place. Gnosis is a remembering of our origins. The student is instructed to remember the cosmic birthright of humankind and to affirm its direct link to the pleroma or the source. Specifically, the student is taught to recall and repeat the key episode in Gnostic mythology, the fall of the Ion Sophia, and thus effectuate a defense against the Archons. By recounting the myth of their origins, the student demonstrates initiated knowledge of the origin and identity of the entity she or he is facing. Intentional recall of cosmic matters disempowers the Archons. This, at least, is a clear inference from the above passage. The tactic of remembrance accords closely with indigenous wisdom. Consider, for instance, the saying of the Naki, a Tibetan people of southeastern China, quote, "One must relate the origin of the medicine, otherwise it cannot work its magic," end quote. Shamans heal not only by their knowledge of the properties of plants, but also by their recounting the story of the plant. Likewise, Gnostics defeated the Archons with their medicine, quote-unquote, occult power of mythological recall. The Coptic materials become increasingly relevant as we realize they do not merely present pedantic or recondite commentaries on a dead religion, but vital insights into the timeless spiritual dilemmas of humanity, insights as valid today as they were 2,000 years ago. Describing the find at Nag Hammadi, Tobias Churton writes, quote, "Had Muhammad Ali not broken open the jar, he would not be able to hear these things. In the truest sense of the word, these things are dynamite. One might have imagined headlines throughout the world." End quote. But there were no such headlines, even in the tabloids. It took many years before the codexes were translated, and still, even today, no scholar will allow that these rare Coptic codices contain reliable accounts of encounters with ET-like entities. Ideological virus. In another passage of the first Apocalypse of James, the Master refers to those people, quote, who exist as a type of Archons, end quote. Gnostics were not only alert to the intrusion of the Archons, they were also acutely aware of the possibility of humans becoming totally archontized. This threat appears to have emerged in a particularly alarming way in the era to which Philip K. Dick often refers, the first century of the Common Era, first century AD, when the incarnation of Christ is said to have occurred according to Christian belief. Of course it occurred. Now, both the time and place where archontic molding of human character set in strongly after specified in the Nag Hammadi texts. In his Gnostic view of the human condition, Dick assumes that the spiritual life of humanity was arrested at that moment. It is as if the behavior of those, quote, who exist as a type of Archons, end quote, locked into place in that era and came to dominate all subsequent centuries, until the moment 1945, when the Nag Hammadi texts were discovered. In a close parallel, Philip K. Dick's vision of the empire, quote unquote, William Reich saw the rise of a similar syndrome, which he characterized as the mechanico-mystical complex. See the mass psychology of fascism. Its signature is authoritarian ideology, the mindset of fascism and patriarchal domination. Significantly, archon was the common term for governor or authority in Roman times. Actually, it's a Greek word meaning leader or boss. Now, in some translations of the Coptic material, archon or archondi is rendered as the authorities. Reich's analysis of what I propose to call the mystico-fascist complex focuses on National Socialism, the Nazi movement which he experienced firsthand, but the mass psychology of fascism contains ample references to Catholicism and the Holy Roman Empire, the millennial ancestor of the mystico-fascist program. For more comments, you can view the contemporary vein, see Armageddon Politics. Now, in allusion to the fascist ideology of the authorities, Philip K. Dick wrote, quote, the empire is the institution, the codification of derangement. It is insane and imposes its insanity on us by violence, since its nature is a violent one, end quote. This is purely a Gnostic insight, compatible with passages in the NHC and deeply resonant with Reich's views on the Massen psychosis of Roman Christianity. It might be argued that the Nazis were not Christians, but in fact Hitler imagined himself as the Grail Knight, modeled after Wagner's Parsifal, and the savior of Judeo-Christian belief is wholly transposed into Nazi radical racial ideology, hence the Aryan identified to some degree. Now, the Holy Reich, published in 2004 by Richard Steigman Gall, professor of history at Kent State University in the US, argues that Hitler was sincere in calling himself a Christian and reveals to what extent his ideology embraced by the Nazi Party and contributed to the advancement of their cause. William Reich warned that since the breakdown of pre-Christian ethos of earth-oriented paganism, quote, the biological core of humanity has been without social representation, end quote. This is a staggering observation, to say the least. The authorities, quote unquote, exhibit the behavior of spiritual zombies, people who exemplify a baffled mix of mystical and militaristic fixations. Quote, what I have called behavioral cloning is widely evident in both militaristic and mystical behavior, such as we see today in neocon religious realpolitics, although it's also embodied in the mass conformity of global consumerism and the rights of technophilia, end quote. According to Reich, these fixations focused on the master fixation on a transcendent God beyond the earth arise from the repression and displacement of somatic sensations, especially feelings. And now, Philip Dick agreed that Reich, in observing the mastico-fascist ideologies grows like armor around people who adopt these fixations, either through indoctrination or intimidation. The mystico-fascist ideology operates like a virus, quote, imposing its form on its enemies, thereby becomes its enemies, end quote. The ideology of the authorities can infect even those who resist it. Hence, it turns humanity against itself. It would appear that some Gnostics were immune to infection, not by accident, but due to their deliberate practice of certain techniques to produce immunity and due in equal measure to their explicit teachings on the Archons and how to resist them, as seen in the above passage, first Apocalypse of James. Gnostic observers on the ground, when Christianity arose, saw salvationist ideology exactly the way Philip Dick did, an ideological virus to be precise, he said. Pagan intellectuals of the day even used that very term for the fanaticism of the converts. Gnosticism, the Gnostics saw the tyranny of belief of metaphysical fantasies that underwrite militaristic agendas in the rise of early Christianity, and we can only imagine what they would see today in the political religiosity of the American right. Now, defending humanity, what are we to make then of Gnostic beliefs about the Archons? It might be said that Gnostics believe that only by confronting what is insane and human in ourselves we can truly define what is human. In essence, to define humanity is to defend it against distortion. Gnostics asserted that the capacity for distortion of humanitas or dehumanitization is inherent in our minds, but this capacity alone is not potentially deviant. Since we are endowed with nous, our mind, that is, our logic, a dose of divine intelligence, we are able to detect and correct distorted thinking. We can master what Tibetan Buddhists called krol pa, thoughts that lead astray, mental fixations that turn us away from humanitas, our true identity. But Gnostics also warned of an alien spin that can add a truly deviant element to our thinking. The effects of Archons is not to make us but to make us, largely through dullness and distraction, disregard our errors so that they extrapolate beyond the scale of correction. The Archons cast a trance over Adam. They put him into a sleepy state, but it was his perception that they dulled. They make our hearts heavy, that we may not pay attention and may not see. So we lose the reflection of the divine light within us, and thus the Archons acted on humanity with a view to deceive. When the life spirit increases and the illuminating power of the body strengthens the soul, no one can lead you astray into the lessening of your humanity. But those on whom the counterfeit spirit preys are alienated from humanity and deviated. The despicable spirit gains strength by leading us astray. The Archons burden the soul, attracting us to works of evil, and pull us down into oblivion, making us forget who we are. The catechism on alien encounters in the first Apocalypse of James is not exceptional. A great deal of Gnostic teaching was dedicated to the theory of error. In the practical sense, Gnostic teachers in the mystery schools instructed the neophytes in how to face the Archons both as alien intruders, comparable to the greys and reptilians of contemporary lore, and as tendencies in their minds. The detection of archontic intrusion in both those modes of experience seems to be unique to the finely nuanced noetic science of the mysteries. In the Gnostic view, human beings, quote, who exist as a type of the Archons, end quote, are those who blindly follow ideologies of insane and inhuman nature for its primary thought. Such beliefs of the Archons intrude upon us. Behavior driven by such beliefs produces pathological personality fixations, resulting in the spiritual zombie. All scholars agree that some Gnostics condemned equally the Jewish origins of the Christian salvationist program and the Pauline-Johannine program itself. And doing so, they did not spread a hate message against anyone. Rather, they attempted to expose what they perceived to be hateful and deceiving message. At the source of this message, they detected the subliminal intrusion of the Archons into the human mind, hence the thrust and preponderance, more than half of all surviving material, by my estimate, of politically and theologically incorrect passages in the Coptic materials. Whether or not Gnostics are delusional about the Archons is a private judgment call, but a fair and open-minded reading of the Coptic text will not yield much evidence for derangement on their part. The seers who expose derangement are not deranged. They were sober and mythological in describing what they knew, and extremely conscientious in prescribing actions to face a perceived threat. They believed that they had identified that most baffling of all enigmas, the root cause of inhumanity and human nature. And what are we to believe about all this today? There is an issue of credibility here, of course. That's to say, we may consider the source of Gnostic teachings apart from their content, but Gnosis is, by definition, a matter of knowing and not of believing. It's about enlightenment, not faith. To give Gnostics credit for actually knowing what they claim to know is only the first step, and beyond that, we must confirm that they knew by our own resources, our own faculties. And this is the perennial challenge of Gnosis, the living, ever-renewing cognition of the human spirit. This is by John Lash, initially published on Phenomena magazine from Meta History website. It's on Humans Are Free, Creative Commons. If you'd like to join me on my Patreon account, you will hear content not covered by mainstream media. These riveting stories will be based on my research, and I will state my opinions and give my personal insight on diverse and controversial subjects and world events not covered by mainstream media, and not supported by YouTube guidelines. So whatever I have on my Patreon, most of those will not be on my YouTube channel. Please consider becoming a member today. More of the most significant and important videos will be on my Patreon channel. Your support helps me to continue my research and keeps this YouTube channel alive. And we depend on your support, your generous charity, because we help economically challenged families here in Athens, Greece, in Kapota, and we also help the young generation with university tuition and the community around our church. Thank you.